This might be one of my favorite movies I've seen. I have never seen a film that has so many themes at once. But most people say it's bad not because it's of poor quality but because of external factors. The movie is based on real events. I won't go into much detail about the real story in this video. Most of you are probably already familiar with the history. Just a recap. Ned Kelly was an Irish Australian who robbed banks and killed police. The first hour-long film in human history was about Ned Kelly. When it was released in 1906, it was a massive success. The film being made only 30 years after the events means it may be the most accurate on-screen telling of the story. The armor used in the film at the time was believed to be Ned's, but it was actually Joe Burns, as his helmet has the distinctive two eye holes. The next big film adaptation came in 1970. This film starred Mick Jagger as Ned. Mick was obviously not a good choice for the role, as he is British, not Irish, and is far too small. The film as well is a musical which doesn't fit with the Ned Kelly story. This film was a massive flop at the box office and it totally deserved it. It would take another 33 years to get a new film adaptation. This is the one we are talking about today. This one I do consider a loose remake of the 1971 and the 1906 one. This movie is an adaptation of the book Our Sunshine. It is produced by Red Dog producer Nelson Wass and directed by Gregor Jordan. It would take another 16 years for the next adaptation and the most recent retelling of the story. This film is called True History of the Kelly Gang and directed by Justin Kurzel. It is a very well-made epic drama movie. However, it is a bit of a missed opportunity as these people could have made the most accurate film version of the tale. This film stars Heath Ledger as Ned. Throughout the film you really get the sense that this is a conflicted man who isn't always sure about what to do in certain situations. You may recognize Heath best as playing the Joker. That was the last role he did before he died. I think his performance in this film is his second best. It's certainly better than what Mick Jagger was doing. When you see Mick play Ned you never feel like this is what he is doing and this is what he believes. Maybe this is because I'm not a Rolling Stones fan, but this acting was bad even for 1970s standards. Meanwhile, when Heath does it, you always feel like this is what he believes and this is what he is saying. He also looks more like Ned than the other ones did. For example, let's compare two scenes in both versions. In the 1971, a police officer comes to Ned's house drunk trying to arrest Ned's brother. The officer then gets violent and Ned had to forcefully remove him. This scene is awkward and bad for several reasons. You never get to take in what this moment means because it happens so quickly. There is also no music. The way it's shot as well is very poor in quality. Now let's contrast that with the 2003 version. The same officer comes to the house, this time looking for Ned's sister. It is only after Ned's brother tells him he can't enter is when he makes up a story about having an arrest warrant. Once the family realizes he doesn't actually have a warrant, he tries to touch Ned's sister and Ned's brother is the one to shoot him. This scene is better than the 1970 version as the music, the acting and camera angles make it so much better. I mentioned earlier how the armor in the 1906 film was Joe's. Well, that was half true. Yes, Joe's was used in close-up shots and promotional material like this one here. But a suit much more closely resembling Ned's was used in action scenes. This is the helmet worn by Mick Jagger in the 1970s film. As you can see, it doesn't at all fit the real armor design. It has too wide of an eye slit, making it look more like Steve Hart's. It also has a lump in the eye slit, making it more resemble Joe's. This the armor used in True History of the Kelly Gang. As you can see, it has all the basic design elements from the actual armor, but it has words and symbols scratched into it. The other suits clearly didn't replicate it very well. This is the armor Heath Ledger wore during the production of this film. It recreates the real armor almost one-to-one. The only real difference really is the eye slit looks a bit smaller and wider. This is the real armor worn by the gang. If you need more proof that these designs are easier to replicate than you think, here it is. This is the helmet that the actor for Joe used in the film. You probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the real one and the costume. This is Joe's real armor. There is nearly zero difference between the two. The film begins with Ned saving another boy from drowning and getting a green sash from the boy's parents. This theme will become very important later. We then see Ned getting beaten up and arrested for accidentally riding a stolen horse. In this scene we get our first taste of what kind of corruption we are going to get in this. Ned then gets released from jail and returns home. This is where we also see Ned's brother Dan and dance friend Steve. Ned also gets a girlfriend while working on a farm. As explained earlier, a police officer comes over and Dan shoots him. Ned isn't present in the scene, but since the officer already hates Ned, he blames it on him. Ned, Dan, Joe and Steve then all run away and ambush a bunch of police. In this scene we see how some police officers are relatively good people. Ned is also shown having a compassionate and sympathetic side to him. The gang then rob a bank. This is perhaps the most memorable scene in the movie. It had a lot of great moments and shows Ned getting the idea to make armor. It also includes the gang burning the mortgages to free the town from debt. We then see the gang rob a second bank. When one of the hostages calls them criminals, Ned explains his side of the story. Ned then puts his gun on the table and explains how if someone shoots him they won't be charged. But no one shoots him and Ned gets all the people to help him write a letter to the police. Earlier on in the film, Joe's friend said that he could do a lot with the reward money. This comes back later on when the police take him into custody and an officer says that if he gives the gang up, Joe will remain safe. Now that the police know where the gang are, they burn the forest and poison the water. The gang have to go through the forest for days with no water. The gang then have to kill each of their horses and drink the blood. At this point, Ned realizes that this can't go on forever and that at some point the gang will be killed. He blames himself for this and goes to his girlfriend's place. Ned and Dan talk about their father. Ned tells Dan about the time he saved that boy from drowning and got the sash.
Is that you?
Joe then kills his friend for being a traitor. You kind of feel bad for him, but the gang would have been caught if they didn't kill him.
Joe.
The gang then construct the armor and find out it's bulletproof. The armor does look visibly lighter than the real ones. But that's not a complaint, that's just something I noticed. The gang plan on holding people inside the Glenrowan Hotel hostage. They then plan on derailing a police train that will come to get them. However, one of the hostages escapes and warns the train. Ned then asks each of the gang members how they feel and they get into action. This is probably the best known scene in the film. The rain being there is also something I enjoyed. Cops were killed during the shootout, but it does make for an epic finale.
They have armor on their body! Aim for their arms and legs! He's been shot!
This scene is great also. Some people think this is supposed to be a depiction of the last stand.
Now's your chance! Quickly! Out that back door there!
And that would make sense. But there's a scene much more closely resembling the last stand later on. This scene is still my second favorite scene in the movie.
Shut there like dogs! I got him! I got Ned Kelly!
This part coming up is kind of funny. Joe's death scene is also really good. There's no dialogue, there is only facial expressions. The acting in this part is so well done. Ned then falls on the ground and gets a flashback of when he got the sash. This is kind of the movie's main theme. The sash is a reminder that Ned has also saved plenty of lives as well. Ned wakes up behind the police.
Around. Do you have any left?
The two remaining gang members shoot themselves.
Only two. I guess that's all we need then, isn't it? We never stood a chance, did we?
The acting in this part in particular is also really great. At this point Ned again realizes there is no way out of this. But he doesn't blame himself this time. Instead this time he rightfully blames the corrupt system and sees the embodiment of corruption right in front of him. The music in this part is also excellent. In real life Ned snuck out of the hotel at night and came in the morning and shot at police, but this changed context works better. This is the last stand in the 1970 version. The important difference to recognize is that in the 2003 version it's more of a crushing defeat, but in this version it's more not a heroic last stand. The armour also makes an awful noise.
Get me in here! I'm
This is the 2019 version. As you can see, there are a lot of flashing lights. This scene is more epic in scale than the other ones, but it's hard to tell what's going on. This scene is a lot more clear for audio and is really well filmed. In this one you get a good sense of how heavy the armour was.
It's Ned Kelly. Christ almighty, it's Ned Kelly.
The film ends with Ned being transported to jail and one of the officers asks if he can have the sash. Ned then looks at him and says nothing. Because we all know that none of the police officers deserve it after all the terrible things they have done. Ned then looks outside and sees kids calling out his name. Ultimately, the film had a budget of $30 million. And it made $6 million. The film's failure can be blamed on the fall in popularity of bush ranger films over the last few decades. The footage on screen now is from the 1906 film. This film was made at a time when the British were still disliked by the Australian population and the Ned Kelly story was still relevant. It seems like the further each recreation got, the more they would deviate from the original story.
Hey Mr. Jones. Yeah, what mate? We have to decide who we are going to get to play Ned Kelly. Well, Ned was obviously a very tall person. We also have to get an actor who has a big beard. So the other day I decided that I would look for an actor. I found this very good actor. No. If there's a problem, I'm. No, absolutely not. No, not under my watch. No. I was thinking we get that famous singer, what's his name? Mick Jagger.